Hello, and let's have a look now at the first certificate speaking exam part 3. Don't forget that part 3 is between two people again, so you and a partner, possibly three. It only lasts 3 minutes and it's based on photos. And so in this talk, I'm going to show you an example, and then we're going to look at some phrases and techniques for maximizing your score in part 3. Y como siempre haré una mezcla de inglés y español. Ok, vamos al grano. So, here's an example of a prompt for part 3, o sea, una pregunta que puede surgir sobre el tema de movie nights. No sé si quieren tomar un minuto para leer las preguntas, la pregunta en realidad. Okay, and here are the pictures that you would be given. So you see 4 types of movies there. Okay, entonces vamos a ver algunas frases y técnicas y daré un ejemplo de cada frase referente a este ejemplo. Okay, so here's the tips. So vamos a ver 3 temas or 3 pieces of advice. The first one is get used to speaking for 3 minutes with a partner, so you know what that feels like. And then we're going to look at showing active listening. No te olvides que es un diálogo. So you have to show que puedes escuchar, tanto escuchar y responder y no solo hablar. And how to keep your delivery natural. Esa parte de hablar lo más natural posible es algo bastante importante. And, you know, it's one of those things que puede marcar la diferencia en la nota final. Okay, so 3 minutes. Les voy a dar una pequeña técnica que les puede surgir, que les puede servir. Now, obviously, if you have a partner, you can simply, with a watch, you can time 3 minutes. If you don't have a partner, I suggest you do this. Basically, you do part the first person yourself. Okay, so again, I'm just going to go back to the question, which says, discuss how interesting each of these types of movies are before deciding which movie to choose for the movie night. So what you would do here, for example, is simply record yourself something like this. In the first picture, there are 4 movies. I'm not sure if I would want to see the third one or the second one. What do you think? And then leave a pause. And that pause is for you to respond to yourself in a minute. All the time you're doing this, estás grabándote. O sea, con Skype o cualquier otro método de grabación. Then you continue. Yeah, I know. Some people do like teenage movies, and cartoons are very popular. But I have to say, I prefer action movies. So I think that I would probably try and choose number 4. Do you like action movies? Oh, you don't? Okay, well, I mean, I suppose number 1 is a classic movie and also action, but I mean, it looks like it might be a silent movie. You know, have you ever seen a silent movie? Okay, you're right. That might be interesting. I suppose something new is good. So, shall we go for number 1 then? Okay, number 1 it is. Great. Okay. Ya grabaste la mitad de la entrevista, de la conversación. Lo vuelves a repetir, you play it back, lo escuchas y respondes a tus propios comentarios. So that's a way that one person can actually model an interview recording themselves. Okay, so that's the first tip. Now, let's have a look at some phrases which will be really useful. Como les dije, you have to show that you're listening. This is a conversation. So I've made a note of some phrases that we use in conversation. These are phrases used by native speakers when we're listening to somebody. We can call this active listening. Okay? So, tenemos cuatro que digamos categories y quiero que tomes un minuto para leer las categorías. Okay, les voy a leer y quiero que vuelves a repetir. So we're just going to work on pronunciation for the moment. Wow, that's a good reason to. Wow, that's a good reason to, for example. Wow, that's a good reason to choose that movie. Yeah, you really have to consider all the options. Yeah, you really have to consider all the options. Right, I know what you mean about. Right, I know what you mean about action movies. Okay, so cuando queremos hacer un summarizing de lo que dice nuestra pareja, podemos resumir lo que acaba de decir. Entonces, yo digo, por ejemplo, well, actually, I think action movies are the most popular kind of movies. Tú respondes, well, that's a good reason to choose action movies. Or yo podría decir, well, you know, some people really love action movies, but I mean, other people really don't like them. So I don't know, maybe the classic movie, maybe the action movie. Tú respondes, yeah, you really have to consider all the options. Yo podría decir, well, I mean, you know, those cartoons, I mean, my kids like them, but I'm not sure if all adults would want to watch them. Tú respondes, right, I know what you mean about adults watching those movies. Okay. Siguiente categoría. Show that you understand. Okay. Estás escuchando, quieres demostrar que hayas entendido. You can use of course. So, repeat after me. Of course. So I can say, yeah, I think action movies usually are pretty generic. Yeah, of course. You're right. You can use it with you're right or not. I think action movies are pretty generic. Yeah, of course. You can also use so para comprobar que hayas entendido, o abrir o cerrar un topic. Okay, so check understanding. So vamos a chequear understanding. Yo diría, yeah, I think that action movies are really generic. Respondes. So you think that action movies are very similar to each other? Yo diría, but silent movies are boring because there's no dialogue. Tú respondes. So you don't like action movies because, so you don't like silent movies because there's no talking. Abrir o cerrar el tema. Abrir el tema. So, what do you think about action movies? Abrir el tema otra vez. So, shall we go for the action movie or maybe the cartoon? Cerrar el tema. So, let's go with the action movie. Cerrar el tema. So, we decided to go with the silent movie. Ahora vamos a ver cómo reconocer las ideas de la otra persona, ¿ok? Tenemos dos frases aquí. That's a good point. Okay, repita, that's a good point. Or that's true. Repita, that's true. Vamos a usarles. So, you know, I think that action movies are really generic. Yeah, that's a good point. You know, silent movies, although they don't have dialogue, you can still follow the story. That's true. Okay. Ahora, si quieres, lo que podrías hacer es regresar a la pregunta y a las 4 fotos about the movie night, y podrías practicar estas frases. Okay. So we've seen phrases for being an active listener. Now let's have a look at some phrases which will help you to sound more natural. So, todas las frases son frases que se emplean los nativo hablantes. Let's have a look. A natural delivery. Okay, entonces vamos a ver estos tipos de fixed phrases. Toma un segundo para leer. Some of you might recognize I give more details of this on one of my previous videos about part 2. Entonces, si no has visto los videos de segunda parte, pueden volver atrás. Okay. Vamos a ver en acción algunas de las fixed phrases. Okay. No te olvides que vamos a tratar de evitar frases muy formales, y también no se olviden que va a haber mucho, porque estamos hablando, es normal y no te van a bajar la puntuación. Y vamos a reformular mucho, es decir, vamos a repetirnos, porque cuando hablamos, lo acabo de hacer, cuando hablamos, repetimos nuestro mensaje a veces 2 o 3 veces, para que quede claro. Okay? So let's have a look. Hay que ver el tema de natural delivery en los chunks. Intonation is really important. So I'm going to talk about rising intonation and falling intonation. Also, rising, falling. Okay, vamos a ver. Empleamos respuestas, preguntas cortas as we're talking. So I might say, for example, at the beginning of the conversation, ready? Notice the rising intonation. Repeat, please. Ready? Okay. Ready? And then the other person says, okay. Falling intonation. Again, ready and okay. Or ready, ready. So, vamos a ver con un ejemplo. Ready? Okay. So I think that we can see 4 different types of movies here. Okay. Respuesta corta, rising intonation. Respuesta corta, falling intonation. You can do that at the beginning of the conversation. When you finish speaking, falling intonation. It was really hot. Si no hayas terminado de hablar, tu intonation debe ser falling, rising. It was, sorry, me equivoqué ahí. Debe ser rising, falling. It was really hot. Let's just correct that for you. Rising. And then falling. Okay. So for an unfinished turn, it was really hot. It was really hot. Check understanding. Rising intonation. So you prefer horror movies? Repita. So you prefer horror movies? To show that you're sure, okay? Mostrar tu seguridad. So you prefer horror movies. So you prefer horror movies. Vamos a ver ahora algunos ejemplos referente a las preguntas. Vamos a ver, un segundo. Okay, so let's have a look. Here we've got the question, the photos. Let's have a look together. We're in the conversation. Ready? La otra persona, ready. Checking understanding. So, you really like cartoons? Yeah, I really like them. Making a statement. So, you really like cartoons? Puedes responder, yeah, a lot. Finish speaking? So, I mean, that teenage movie really doesn't look good for adults. Puedes responder, yeah, I know what you mean. And finally, it could be an unfinished turn. So, I suppose silent movies are kind of cool. Y en ese caso, esperas que termine su turno. Okay, so it is really important that you understand that intonation no solo es una parte peripheral a lo que es la comunicación, es una parte integral de la comunicación. Entonces deberías practicar por lo menos lo básico en intonación en estos casos. Okay, let's have a look now then at some more phrases. Okay, let me just share this screen with you. Okay. Están conversando, están hablando de las películas, and you want to use a shared experience phrase. Es decir, okay, a mí no me gustan las películas de terror, una vez vi una de niño y no pude dormir una semana. ¿Okay? Y la otra persona le ha pasado lo mismo o quiere demostrar solidaridad con su pareja, entonces puede decir, por ejemplo, I had that happen to me. That reminds me of, or speaking of, vamos a ver en más detalle. So, let's do pronunciation. I had that happen to me. I had that happen to me. That reminds me of. Speaking of. Okay, ahora vamos a aplicarles al ejemplo nuestro. So when I was a kid, I remember I watched a horror movie and I couldn't sleep all week. Yeah, I had that happen to me. I remember watching a vampire movie and it really scared me. That reminds me of when I saw a horror movie with my brother and he scared me after the movie by pretending to be a ghost. Speaking of horror movies, yeah, I had some really bad dreams when I was a kid because of watching horror movies. A veces durante la conversación te pueden plantear preguntas difíciles, tough questions. ¿Cómo lidias con una pregunta difícil? Okay, 2 phrases here. Repitan, por favor. That's a good question. That's a good question. And I wish I knew. I wish I knew. Okay, vamos a emplearles en el ejemplo nuestro. So somebody says, por ejemplo, what do you think are higher grossing films, teenage movies or action movies? Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer though. Or, I wish I knew which one was higher, but I don't know. ¿Quieres introducir una idea nueva en la conversación? Repitan. What I thought was good was what I thought was good was, what I was going to say was, the best part is, okay, vamos a aplicarle a nuestras fotos. What I think is good about silent movies is they give you a window into the world maybe even 100 years ago. What I was going to say was that cartoons now are appropriate for adults, not just children. Well, the best part of choosing an action movie is, well, everybody loves, you know, big stunts and explosions. Okay, vamos a terminar el video with showing your certain phrases. O sea, quieres ser un poco contundente, es decir, que estás seguro de algo. Okay, so repitan. In fact, to be honest, to tell the truth. Okay, vamos a aplicarles a nuestras fotos. Well, in fact, I know that action movies are really popular. To be honest, nobody is going to sit through a 2-hour silent movie. To tell the truth, you know, adults don't watch cartoons. Okay. Como siempre, les recomiendo que vuelvan a ver los videos, que anotan las frases y que les traten de emplear en un contexto. En Google pueden encontrar más Part 3 preguntas, más videos en YouTube para tener más ejemplos y trata de aplicar las frases a los ejemplos. In the next video, I might have a look at making some hypothetical language, which is also really important in Part 3. Thanks very much. See you next time.